tell us where you're speaking from and what's around you right now.
I am in Hall 4, one of 6 halls, where they have a lot of meeting spaces and kiosks, and I'll walk around a little bit, of a lot of the international organizations and other organizations to do climate. This is a space where a lot of the NGOs meet, and across from us is where the delegates meet, and then they have plenary sessions in other halls.
And Jose, we hear there's a lot of excitement there among the faith community about something that happened today with Secretary Kerry. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, as you may know, Secretary Kerry announced $80 million of U.S. funds devoted to climate adaptation, focused specifically on the most vulnerable nations, small island states, least developed nations, and African nations. And this is a remarkable achievement from the faith community, and but particularly those peoples who are directly and most harmed by climate change. To have this level of compassion demonstrated by the administration at this critical time.
Now, Jose, you said that's $800 million, and can you talk a little bit about where that money will be going?
Well, yes. Trick question. To various funds within the administration, not just the Green Climate Fund, although we are, excited about the administration's support of that. There is a challenge that this money it has to be appropriated by Congress, and so we have that continuing challenge. But noting again the administration's specific focus on the most vulnerable nations and recognizing our need, the developed world, to contribute to assist them.
And how do you think the faith community's presence there in Paris and your presence there has helped to move our country and the other countries to make this substantial expanded commitment to the poorest among us?
Well, I would say it's all of us. It's not just the faith community. I think there's a growing recognition amongst all of the parties here that we need to get a signal to the world that we need to move towards a low-carbon future for the sake of our common future and future generations. I would say the faith community presence is very significant. We are here in unprecedented numbers, and there is more express appreciation from other sectors that we are here to raise the moral call. This has been a moment that has been gathering for years and is really paying off. So as an overall matter, while the faith community isn't per se, well, I wouldn't say that. We bring a spiritual dimension that I think is greatly needed here. And just by our mere presence, bring that to the table. I would say that yes.
Oh, go ahead, continue.
Recognizing that we have states like small island nations in existential crisis, they themselves bring a potent moral call that I think is starting to sway all nations to come together on this agreement.
I have a question for our constituents who might be watching this from around the country. What message would you have them deliver their members of Congress as they communicate what's happening in Paris and the importance of U.S. leadership?
I would ask that they continue to hold everyone here in the light. There has been unprecedented cooperation amongst nations and advocates that many of the veteran observers and participants note with a lot of optimism, and we need to continue that tone moving forward. The message to Congress is to recognize the import of this gathering, the amount of cooperation, unprecedented cooperation amongst nearly 200 nations to put this treaty, this agreement together is a wonderful development, and we need to affirm the process moving forward and hope that this is the step that gets us to a viable, thriving future.
Thanks. And so earlier today, there was the first draft text of the agreement released. Can you talk a little bit about what that says and if people are optimistic about its chances moving forward, and then what the temperature goals are in that agreement?
Okay, well, first starting with the temperature goals, there was an introduction at the very beginning of the summit of a 1.5 degrees Celsius ceiling of the acceptable rise in global temperatures. That was completely unexpected and most welcome, brought together by new scientific findings that the delegates learned about. That's a tremendous accomplishment. And it is, for example, it is a guardrail that if we work towards a 1.5 degree increase and not a 2 degree increase, that will save the lives of hundreds of millions of people. In the existing text, there is still consideration of that 1.5 goal. There's bracketed text that talks about 1.5 or around 1.5 or under 2. All of them are progress. We would like the 1.5 to be that guardrail, and we'll see how that progresses into the next round of negotiations. The fact that it is still in there is a very positive sign. The overall agreement, all of us here are still trying to digest what that means. At this time, we don't see any, well, I don't see that many, I wouldn't say that either. There are obviously some concerns with some of the text, but a lot of the positivity still remains. I would say, writ large, some concern about the human rights language softened, but relative to previous agreements, there wasn't even mention of human rights. So those are sort of the two spectrums there. With regard to reporting requirements, there's a lot of bracketed text. With regard to the intended nationally determined contributions, that is still in play. We could have something very strong or something very weak, or actually less strong or very weak. That is to be determined probably in the final version of the text. With regard to climate finance, we're seeing that a lot of the principles that we were seeking, for example, reporting requirements with regard to new climate finance, still in the text. That's a positive. Whether we are going to see new and increased funding in those reporting requirements also has yet to be determined. It is an encouraging step that we still have those options on the table. With regard to indigenous rights, we're seeing some slippage there, which is of concern. And I'm dialoguing with the Indigenous Caucus, and we are calling some of our members of the U.S. delegation to protect or return back some of that language. So that's something that is of concern.
Jose, just another question. You personally, what's been could you describe for us one of the most moving or significant things that you've done at the conference in the last couple of days that sort of personally moved you as a participant?
What's really moved me is the high level of togetherness that has come here. Over 200 nations really resolved to get an agreement moving forward. I mean, even nations like Saudi Arabia allowing a 1.5 degree Celsius target is huge. Having some nations which used to be troubling nations stepping aside or putting down some of their ideological objections is huge as well. With regard to the NGO community, they too have been dealing with these negotiations in a much more collaborative way, working closely with the delegates. There is a spirit of goodwill here that we need to affirm and carry forth and hold everyone here in the light till the end.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Sure. Well, thank you, Jose. We look forward to talking to you later this week.